This is an evidentiary hearing before the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, and a cause docketed before the commission is cause number 46010, captioned as Petition of the City of Elkhart, Indiana, for authority to increase its rates and charges for water service and for approval of new schedule of rates and charges applicable thereto. Notice of the time and place of the hearing was given as provided by law by publication in Marion County through the Indianapolis Star on September 27th, 2024, and also in Elkhart County through the Elkhart Truth on September 26, 2024, and the Goshen News on September 30th, 2024. These are newspapers of general circulation, and these publications were made at least 10 days prior to the date of the evidentiary hearing. The proofs of publication of the notices have been received by the Commission and are now incorporated into the record of this cause by reference and placed in the official files of the Commission. Notice has also been given to the Indiana Office of Utility Consumer Counselor and other interested parties. May we have appearances, please, first on behalf of petitioner.
Margaret Marnoka, excuse me, Margaret Marnoka on behalf of the City of Elkhart.
Thank you. On behalf of the public?
Thank you, Your Honor. For the public, Dan LeVay of the Indiana Office of Utility Consumer Counselor.
And I had an informal conversation with counsel before going on the record today, and by agreement of the parties, we'll take a brief recess and we'll reconvene at 11 o'clock. Thank you, counsel. We'll go off the record this time. We're back in the record in 46010. Petitioner, when you're ready, please proceed.
Margaret Marnoka for the City of Elkhart. Your Honor, at this time, I would offer Exhibit 1, which is the direct verified testimony of Tori Irwin, and as well as attachments TI 1 through 7 and TI 9 through 21. Exhibit 2, which is the direct verified testimony of Andre Riley with attachments AJR-1 and AJR-2. And exhibit number 3, which is the petitioner's response to questions posed in the filing by the commission on November 13th. And the attachment to that. Also, I would offer into evidence the joint stipulation and settlement agreement that was filed on November 6th, 2024, as well as the 2 attachments.
And I believe that document has been marked as Joint Exhibit 1. Is that correct?
Pardon me?
The stipulation and settlement agreement, I don't think you indicated the exhibit number. That's been marked as Joint Exhibit 1. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay. Mr. LeVay.
Your Honor, no objection to any of the evidence, and we've waived cross-examination of those witnesses.
Petitioner's Exhibits 1, 2, and 3 are admitted into the record without objection. Joint Exhibit 1 is also admitted into the record without objection. Ms. Marnoka, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. LeVay.
Thank you, Your Honor. The OUCC at this time would offer Public Exhibit number 1S, which is the settlement testimony of Jason T. Compton, filed on November 4th, 2024.
Ms. Marnoka, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
And does petitioner waive cross-examination?
We do, Your Honor.
Public Exhibit 1S is admitted into the record without objection. Mr. LeVay.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would also like to ask Sean Dellinger to take the stand and answer some questions related to the docket entry response.
Thank you, Mr. LeVay. Sir, if you would take the witness stand, we'll go off the record while that's accomplished. It's on the table. All right. We'll go back on the record. Sir, if you would, raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Thank you, sir. If you would, please have a seat. Mr. LeVay, when you and your witness are ready, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. It is. I'll step a bit closer. Mr. Dellinger, would you please state your name for the record?
Sean Dellinger,
Who are you employed by?
the Office of Utility Consumer Counselor,
And what's your title?
Senior Utility Analyst.
And what do you do for the OUCC?
I focus on financial issues primarily in the Water and Wastewater Division.
And does that include cost of equity,
Yes,
financing?
cost of equity, cost of debt, municipal debt issuances.
Okay. Do you have the commission's docket entry in front of you? I know you have the response that's been offered. The docket entry, you brought a copy of your own copy of the docket entry?
Yeah, I have a copy on my own. Actually, the official exhibit, I don't have the docket entry, it doesn't look like.
No, but you've got a copy, a photocopy of what the commission asked?
I do.
Okay. The first question in that docket entry was asking for the amortization schedules related to the borrowing of $8.355 million plus a $1.5 million grant for replacing lead service lines. Have you seen what was provided in response to the commission's docket entry? By the utility?
Yes, I saw an attachment for the docket entry that included a spreadsheet.
Okay, and did that seem to be consistent with your understanding of how the debt might be amortized?
Yes, it looked like those amortization tables were correct. I believe they were on the green tabs of that attachment. And those would have been the relevant amortization tables.
Okay, let's go to the second question, which includes a quote of the settlement agreement. And if you need to review that language, please do. I know you're familiar with it. Let's just go to the first question. The question was to explain when petitioner anticipates issuing the debt for the $16.85 million. My recollection of the docket entry response was that that would be begin the process of issuing the debt for the $16.85 million in 2025 after the new rates go into effect. What is your understanding of when that debt might actually be issued?
So I believe when Elkhart talks about begin the process of issuing the debt in 2025, they don't mean to imply that they're going to issue it in 2025. I believe what they mean is that at that point, they will start understanding the different costs, getting the bids, getting more robust cost estimates, and that process, which is going to be a relatively long process. To clarify, Elkhart has complete discretion as to the timing of when they wish to issue this debt. Or if they wish to issue the debt. That is something that's not in the agreement. It's their options. When we modeled this to make sure that Elkhart would be whole, we used a $5 million bond issuance in 4 years, basically year 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Why did you use a $5 million bond issuance?
Per current SRF, which is State Revolving Fund policy, they limit lead service line replacement funding to $5 million per year per customer. So splitting the debt over up to $5 million would maximize the amount that you would be able to get that is subsidized.
Okay. Is that true for PFAS borrowing as well?
We don't know. We haven't seen exactly how the PFAS subsidization is going to work. For purposes of this case, we didn't treat it any different than lead service lines, but that is only an assumption. We do not know.
To the extent that it is consistent or differs from the SRS practice with respect to lead line service lines, and I'm talking about PFAS, is it your expectation that Elkhart would make appropriate adjustments to its plans and for lack of a better word, get the most bang for its buck and make prudent decisions with its borrowing?
Yes, I think I would have confidence that the city of Elkhart would do what's in the best interest of their ratepayers to either pursue PFAS funding or lead service lines if they choose to do either of those. And I think at this point, there's very preliminary estimates as to the cost of the PFAS remediation, but it is very preliminary.
Let me just jump ahead to the question 2C, and we can go back to 2B in a moment. But the question was to ask to explain what projects and extensions and replacements in our settlement, the OUC settlement Schedule 7, that the petitioner plans on eliminating, if any, to fund the debt service and debt service reserve from the $16.85 million. What's your understanding of the kind of projects that would, well, let me back up. The monies that would be used to address debt service are monies that are a line item in their E&R revenue requirement?
That is correct.
And what were that monies to be used for, based on your understanding, the $142.857 thousand?
That was funding $1 million worth of lead service lines in, I believe, year 3 and 4 of the rates of $500,000 per year, so $1 million worth total. And that $142,000 comes from dividing that number over 7 years, which is how they determined the ENR budget.
And the response to that question was that petitioner does not intend to eliminate any of the extensions and replacements in Schedule 7. Is it your understanding that as a result of this agreement, fewer lead lines are going to be replaced?
No, I think the answer in the docket entry saying they are not intending to eliminate any is correct, but the intention, if they utilize this additional funding, which again is optional, would be to change the method of funding of those projects and do potentially other projects. The goal of this would be, currently Elkhart is planning on funding $4 million worth of lead service lines over the life of these rates, which is 5 years. If they maximized the additional borrowing of $16.85 million, they would basically be able to do $20 million worth. So they would quintuple the number of lead service lines they'd be able to do over the next 5 years.
I know it depends on timing of the borrowing, but do you have any sense whether going this way of borrowing is going to put off lead line replacement, or?
It should not put off any sort of lead service line replacements, no.
Is it possible that, depending on timing of when the borrowing is made, that it might speed up lead line replacements or the initial replacements of lead lines?
Yes.
Let's just go to B, if you would, 2B of the Commission's docket entry questions. And the question was to provide the amount of debt service and debt service reserve petitioner anticipates for the $16.85 million loan. And my question was, is that debt service going to be ultimately more or less than the $142,000 annual ENR revenue requirement?
That response is a little nuanced. The exit rate or the maximum rate, if you borrowed $16.85 million, would actually be $294,000. But over the life of these rates, Elkhart is made whole because they're collecting the $142,000 of cash-funded ENR from day one, and they wouldn't be issuing the additional debt on day one. So there's overcollection taking place for the first some period of time. In our modeling, which is included in the docket entry response, where we assumed it would be a $5 million borrowing in year 2, 3, 4, and 5, and taking place on April 1st, Elkhart still has more revenue over that 5-year period than cost. But by the end of year 5, they would be not covering their costs entirely. They would be, I guess, eating into the overcollection at that point.
Does the OUCC settlement in this case, the party settlement, does it anticipate a need for PFAS and lead line replacement? Let me withdraw that question. If the OUCC and petitioner had not reached this agreement, and including the provision for allowing this additional debt service, would that affect how soon Elkhart would need to come back for rates?
Yes, there's a large amount of required investment in lead service lines and PFAS that's going to have to take place beyond the horizon of this 5-year, the 5-year horizon that we're looking at for this case. We're mitigating that to some extent with the additional borrowing. That's the intention of the settlement. There is still a significant amount of investment that's going to be required going forward. after the life of these rates ends.
So would it be fair to characterize this as this provision of the settlement gives the utility a leg up on addressing expensive projects that would need to complete without affecting current ratepayers?
Yes, that's the goal of this settlement in a nutshell is that, to allow Elkhart to start making meaningful investments in these lead service lines and PFAS issues that are present while not impacting current rates and taking advantage to the maximum amount possible of the subsidized funding that's available. I think to contextualize this, and that is in our settlement testimony, I believe, but the total amount that's required, I believe, is somewhere around $86 million, which would probably be over the next 10 years based on current requirements, which may change, may not, but, and that's not really a financial issue, but based on what we're looking at now, that's how much the current estimates are. So 20 million is a material dent in that, although it's certainly not taking care of the problem once and for all.
Thank you. Thank you. And no more questions for you, Mr. Dellinger. In your honor, I have no more questions for Mr. Dellinger, and he is available to answer any questions the commission may have.
Thank you, Mr. LeVay. Ms. Bernoka, any questions for any cross?
I would just like to thank Mr. Dellinger for his testimony.
Thank you. We do have a couple of questions. Mr. Dellinger, if you would direct your attention to Petitioner's Exhibit 3. It's a docket entry response, specifically to the spreadsheet titled General Calculation of Revenue Requirement. I believe it's the only spreadsheet that's printed in a landscape view.
I believe there are two that are. Is this the one that has by quarter?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Near the bottom of that spreadsheet, below Q4 2029, breaks down Phase 2 total cost, Phase 2 monthly cost, and then below that, Phase 3 total cost and Phase 3 monthly cost. Can you explain, how the monthly cost for each of those phases was calculated? Let's address Phase 2 first, please.
Sure. So Phase 2, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to reference individual cells on this, but the total cost on Phase 2, which is $419,000 and change, is the columns starting on Q2 of 2026 of $36,976 down to Q4 of 2027, which is $66,631. And the two columns over. So it's like a block of 3 columns and however many rows that is, 7 rows or whatever. Those numbers all total up to $419,000. So that is the amount that we're anticipating the total cost would be based on the issuance dates given for the different loans that will take place within what we're calling Phase 2. The monthly cost is simply that $419,000 divided by 21 months, which is the period of time that we're anticipating Phase 2 to be in effect. And then the annualized cost is simply the monthly cost times 12.
Thank you. Then would that be your same answer in regards to Phase 3 total cost and Phase 3 monthly cost?
Yes, obviously the section that we're using to come up with the total cost is different, but yes, same methodology.
And what's the length of time for Phase 3?
24 and a half months.
Great. Thank you, sir. Now let me direct your attention to attachment JTC-1. That would, do you have that in front of you? I don't know if you do or not.
I don't believe I do. Hold on, please.
That It'll be Public Exhibit 1S.
Actually, I do, yes.
Excellent. Yeah, if you would take a look at, hold one moment here, on page 4. There is a difference listed in the debt service and debt service. I'm sorry, you're still getting there?
I am, thank you.
So sorry. Take your time when you're ready, sir.
I'm ready.
Okay, very well. There's a difference in the debt service and debt service reserve for Phase 2 and for Phase 3. Why is that? Let me ask that differently, if I may. It appears that based upon Mr. Riley's testimony, there's no difference in the amount of the loans, the term of the loans, or the interest rates. So why would the debt service and debt service reserve for each of these individual phases be different?
And to clarify your question, for Phase 2, for instance, you're asking me why there is a difference between $316,000 and $239,000?
Correct.
It's because of the original petitioner's case used the same amortization tables, but used the maximum payments. So like the exit velocity or what it would be in December for the year, whereas the way we did it in the settlement, we have a lot of numbers that are basically zeros in there, and there's also some interest-only periods. So if you look at, when I described previously, we took like a matrix of different numbers. About half those numbers are zeros. And basically, the lead service line borrowings, for instance, have no costs for until the Q1 of 2027, whereas in the initial projection, Phase 2 was, I believe, calendar year 2026 and included the lead service lines in its entirety, rather than taking an average of that over the time period that we're looking at now.
Very well. Let's go off the record for a moment. Ms. Dellinger, thank you so much for your time, for your testimony today. The commission, hold on. Let's go back on the record. Thank you. Ms. Dellinger, the commission does not have any further questions for you. You may exit the witness stand. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. LeVay, or let's go off the record while Mr. Dellinger exits the stand. All right, we'll go back on the record. Mr. LeVay.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing further from the OUCC.
Ms. Marnoka?
Yes, Your Honor, I would offer the additional attachments into the evidence from Tori Irwin's testimony, if I may.
I believe this is TI-8, is that correct?
TI-8, Your Honor, and apparently there was also a disk for TI-17 that was on that document when it showed up right here.
Very well. Any objection to either of these
No, Your Honor.
additions to Petitioner's Exhibit 1?
Yes, Your Honor. No objection to those, and I, again, have waived cross on that witness.
Good. Very well. All right. Those additions are made to Petitioner's Exhibit 1. Ms. Marnoka, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. The post-hearing briefing schedule is set forth in the Commission's April 19th, 2024 docket entry. I believe petitioners' proposed order would therefore be due on or before December 3rd, 2024, and it's my understanding, based upon an informal conversation with the parties before going on the record, that the parties anticipate submitting a joint proposed order. If not, then we'll just revert back to the dates in the procedural schedule for post-hearing filings. And with that, the petition is taken under advisement, and this hearing is adjourned. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you so much.